The Old Kingdom of Egypt, dating back to around 2686 to 2181 BCE, stands as a testament to human ingenuity and ambition. It was an era of unprecedented prosperity and stability. This period witnessed the construction of the iconic pyramids of Giza. These monumental tombs served as powerful symbols of pharaonic authority and continue to inspire awe and wonder even today. The pharaohs of the Old Kingdom ruled with absolute power. They were considered to be divine kings, intermediaries between the gods and humanity. The centralized government of the Old Kingdom oversaw vast irrigation projects, harnessing the annual floods of the Nile River. This led to agricultural surpluses, which fueled economic growth and supported a complex social hierarchy of officials, priests, scribes, and artisans. Egyptian art and architecture flourished during this time, reflecting a deep reverence for order, symmetry, and the afterlife. The Old Kingdom was a time of peace and prosperity. Egypt's borders were secure, and its people enjoyed a high standard of living. The pharaoh's authority was unchallenged. However, the Old Kingdom's success carried within it the seeds of its eventual decline. As its wealth and power grew, so too did internal tensions and external threats. The centralized power structure, once a source of stability, became a point of vulnerability. The Old Kingdom's decline was a gradual process, marked by a confluence of factors. One of the most significant was economic strain. The construction of massive pyramids and temples required enormous resources, putting a strain on the state's finances. Successive pharaohs faced the challenge of maintaining the lavish lifestyles of the elite while also funding public works projects. This became increasingly difficult. As resources became scarcer, competition for power and influence intensified. Provincial governors, once loyal servants of the pharaoh, began to assert their independence and challenge the pharaoh's authority. This led to political fragmentation, and the centralized government of the Old Kingdom began to unravel. The pharaoh's grip on power weakened. Adding to these internal pressures were external threats. Nomadic tribes from the deserts to the east and west of the Nile Valley began to encroach on Egyptian territory, drawn by the wealth and prosperity of the Nile Valley. These incursions further destabilized the Old Kingdom and stretched its resources thin. The pharaohs found it increasingly difficult to defend the kingdom's vast borders. A combination of internal and external pressures brought an end to the Old Kingdom's golden age. Following the collapse of the Old Kingdom, Egypt entered a period known as the First Intermediate Period, around 2181 to 2055 BCE. It was a time of political chaos and social upheaval. The centralized government of the Old Kingdom had completely disintegrated, and Egypt was divided into a patchwork of competing regional powers. However, the spirit of resilience that would characterize Egyptian civilization throughout its history was far from extinguished. Around 2055 BCE, a new dynasty emerged from the city of Thebes in Upper Egypt, reunifying the country. This marked the beginning of the Middle Kingdom from around 2055 to 1786 BCE. The Middle Kingdom pharaohs restored order and stability, embarked on ambitious building projects, expanded trade routes, and reasserted Egyptian control over Nubia to the south. The Middle Kingdom was a period of cultural renaissance. Literature flourished and new literary genres emerged, exploring themes of morality, justice, and the human condition. The arts and crafts also saw a revival, with Middle Kingdom artisans renowned for their exquisite jewelry, pottery, and funerary objects. The Middle Kingdom, while not as outwardly grandiose as the Old Kingdom, demonstrated the enduring strength of Egyptian civilization and its ability to rise from the ashes of decline. Section 4, the Hyksos, invaders from the east. The Middle Kingdom, like the Old Kingdom before it, eventually succumbed to a combination of internal and external pressures. One of the most significant external threats came from the Hyksos, a foreign people who invaded Egypt from the east around 1650 BCE. The Hyksos were skilled warriors. They possessed superior military technology. This included horse-drawn chariots and composite bows. These advances gave them a significant advantage over the Egyptians. The Hyksos conquered much of Lower Egypt. They established their capital at Avaris in the Nile Delta. They ruled over much of Egypt for over a century. The Hyksos rule marked a turning point in Egyptian history. It exposed the limitations of traditional Egyptian warfare. It also forced the Egyptians to adapt to new military technologies. The Hyksos, despite their initial role as conquerors, were not simply agents of destruction. They adopted many aspects of Egyptian culture. They worshipped Egyptian gods. They commissioned the construction of temples and palaces in the Egyptian style. The Hyksos' presence had a profound impact on Egyptian society. It led to the development of new military technologies and tactics. It also brought about cultural exchange and innovation. The Hyksos period, while traumatic, ultimately strengthened Egyptian civilization. It paved the way for the emergence of the New Kingdom. Section 5. The New Kingdom, an Empire Forged. The New Kingdom, around 1550 to 1070 BCE, is often regarded as the most glorious period in ancient Egyptian history. It was an era of unprecedented military expansion, economic prosperity, and cultural achievement. The New Kingdom pharaohs, determined to expel the Hyksos and restore Egyptian glory, built a powerful and well-equipped army. They adopted the Hyksos' military innovations. They incorporated horse-drawn chariots and bronze weapons into their arsenal. Under the leadership of pharaohs such as Ahmose I, Thutmose III, and Ramesses II, the Egyptians drove out the Hyksos. They expanded their empire far beyond the traditional borders of Egypt. They conquered Nubia to the south, extending their control deep into Africa. They also campaigned east into the Levant, clashing with the Hittites, Mitanni, and other powerful empires of the ancient Near East. The New Kingdom witnessed the construction of some of Egypt's most impressive monuments. Temples at Karnak and Luxor, the royal tombs in the Valley of the Kings, and the colossal statues of Ramesses II at Abu Simbel stand as testaments to the wealth and power of the New Kingdom pharaohs. However, beneath this veneer of power and prosperity lay the seeds of decline. Military campaigns were costly. The rise of a powerful priestly class challenged the pharaoh's authority. The New Kingdom, despite its grandeur, was heading towards a slow decline. Section 6. Shadows lengthen, the Third Intermediate Period. The New Kingdom, like the kingdoms that preceded it, eventually succumbed to a combination of internal and external pressures. By the late 11th century BCE, Egypt was once again in a state of decline. The authority of the pharaoh had weakened. The country was plagued by economic problems, political instability, and social unrest. This period, known as the Third Intermediate Period, around 1070 to 664 BCE, saw Egypt once again fragmented into competing regional powers. Adding to these internal woes were renewed external threats. The Libyans from the west launched a series of raids into Egypt. They eventually gained control over much of the Nile Delta. The Sea Peoples, a mysterious confederation of seafaring raiders, also posed a significant threat. They attacked numerous targets along the Mediterranean coast, including Egypt. The Third Intermediate Period was a time of turmoil and uncertainty. It seemed as though the once mighty Egyptian civilization was on the verge of collapse. However, even in these dark times, the Egyptian spirit of resilience endured. New dynasties emerged, each vying for control of Egypt. While the Third Intermediate Period marked a low point in Egyptian power, it also set the stage for a final period of resurgence under the Kushite and